everyone. I am here with a very, very dear friend, Risheen, who's joining us from California as we are going deeper and deeper into my research on what the future holds for us. Risheen brings to us a very, very critical insight on her domain. Risheen is a cardiologist at Stanford University and will be sharing with us her insights as a medical practitioner as regards to the future of work. Risheen, welcome. Thank you so much for doing this, Risheen.
Hi, Vibha. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Excellent. All right. So, Rashid, just to get started here, when we think about the future of work, and when we started thinking about putting this book down together, we are first asked ourselves, why is this book even important to readers? Why is it important to all of us as citizens? So, from your vantage point as a cardiologist, why the future of work? Why is this even a topic worth having a conversation around?
Yeah, no, I think it's an extremely important topic because the way healthcare and the way medicine is advancing really from our perspective, and cardiology has always been a little bit at the cutting edge because we have newer treatments, we have medications, we have things that really try to advance the field because we have a lot of research and we've invested a lot in research. So I think the world is changing, and I think the treatments are changing, and we're always everyone the central goal of medicine is always to try to do the best for our patients, and always to try and be good teachers for the next generation. So I think with that and knowing that the way the world is changing, globalization is happening, I think it's critical that we really do focus on the future, but not forget important lessons from our past as well.
Okay, terrific. So keep a lens on the future, but not forgetting what we've learned in the past. Okay, I love that phrasing. Beautiful opening, Risheen. Thank you for that. As we think about the future, when I speak to people in different industries, people have given me various factors in terms of what's affecting their industries. What are some of the, primary factors affecting the future of their worlds? These have included things like sustainability, technology, globalization, DEI. So if you could please touch upon certain factors that are affecting medicine and sort of explain and illustrate how, that would be very helpful.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think in terms of kind of technology and advancements, I think as we spoke about before, AI is becoming really important, and in Silicon Valley where we are, it really is a critical focus now on how we can use those tools in a sustainable and healthy way to advance medicine as well, because it's coming and it's definitely something that has shown promise. But again, like anything else new, it needs to be regulated. So there's a lot of work being done at our institution and many other institutions, and kind of with industry as well, on how we can use AI in a way that really will help us but not hinder us. And again, AI and medicine is again going to be used to make patient-centered decisions and things that really could be critical to somebody's health and somebody's well-being. So it has to be very tightly regulated, and I think that's the part that's being worked on. Of course, with these large language models and generative AI and the training sets, it's a lot about what you put in for data before you can analyze it. But, a lot of things are being looked at, like how do we read ECGs with AI, echoes, lots of imaging things, and how we can use it to make our life easier, but still do right by our patients. And
Are
basically,
you seeing this being implemented already in your
so a
hospitals?
lot of work is being done in the research phase, and pilot studies are being done. It's not prime time yet, but it's definitely something that we're all looking into.
Okay, so you gave the example of being able to read some of the charts and reports. Um, that as a sort of outsider layperson does seem pretty feasible, right? Because I mean, as a doctor, you probably get trained on reading many, many, many of these until you reach a level of proficiency, and now a machine can do these. Do you think this sort of thesis is accurate, or do you?
So I think it's you have to be cautionary though, because yes, a certain the part that is pattern recognition and the part that can be outsourced to AI, I think is important. The critical part is making a mistake. So humans make mistakes, no question. But if there is something that is not being overseen, or there's not enough oversight, then I think if you make a mistake, the consequences can be dire. We have to just keep that in mind. So I think, whereas it will perform well in many cases, we have to find and kind of adjudicate what to do in those situations where it may not perform so well. So that's where the research is important. That's where, a lot of training and a lot of understanding of the technology and the people who are using the technology, because ultimately it will be humans using the technology. So I think that's where really the work needs to be done and is being done.
Okay. Any other examples of AI or technology other than reading of charts? Are you seeing it happen in the operating theaters? Where else are you seeing AI coming through?
Yeah, so I don't work in the operating theaters, but I know that there is kind of research being done in that realm. I think again, this is going to evolve pretty rapidly because there's already been a lot of interest and there is research going on. So I think there will be in the future what we're going to see is how we can use this in a way that is safe but helps us to do work and see larger volumes of patients. I think that's going to be the ultimate goal. And
Hmm.
regulation is important because there's also privacy issues with patients and things like that. So we have to be very, very careful.
Okay, so you brought out safety, privacy, but being able to see large volumes of patients. So that's sort of the upside of this sort of technology. Okay,
Right.
so okay, anything else you want to share on technology before we move to another factor?
No, I think we can go.
Okay, cool. So I think you mentioned something on globalization as well. What sort of what sort of effect of globalization are you seeing in your field?
Yeah, so this is actually something I'm very personally interested because I think that when you are in places that are resource rich, which can be any country, but certainly the US has a lot of institutional resources and things like that, then I think in medicine it really does behoove you to share this with others, especially now we're in the age of, post or with the pandemic, um, the world has become so much closer with video conferencing and things like that. You don't have to travel to another country to share your knowledge. So I think with that globalization of really having information, training, teaching available to people so that everybody can have access to good resources, I think that should be part of our commitment as physicians and educators.
Okay, so sort of like an osmosis of information moving from higher density to lower. When you think of the heart as an organ, since you're a cardiologist, essentially it's the same organ, right? There is no difference between races and cultures, etc. So that information is easily shareable. Is that what you're trying to say?
There are certain basic principles apply, but certainly what we're seeing, and there's a lot of work actually being done on this, but racial diversity, gender diversity, there are certain conditions that affect races differently. There are conditions that affect women differently, and what we're really learning now, and we're taking a deep dive, is that there's not enough representation in trials of minorities, minority races, and of women. And I think that is affecting the trial data because if you're doing a research study with a lot of people and you're not actually reflecting the population or enough inclusion in that population, you will get skewed results. And then how do you apply that to that particular patient who was not represented? So I think that is something that a lot of people are looking at in the research community, how to increase representation in clinical trials. That is going to be key because when you do that, then you start seeing the signals that, oh, this affects African Americans more, this affects women more, we can treat this differently, and that is really, really important for the future.
Hmm. Okay, wow. Okay, so that sort of links into the whole DEI theme, in terms of just broadening up the sample size. Any other DEI implications in terms of future of medicine?
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, a lot of work is being done, and there are people who are studying this and implementing it in real life. I think it is, what we're learning in medicine now is one is for our patients, but two is also for our trainees, because the other part of being in medicine is you're training the next generation of physicians and practitioners. So I think making sure that you have adequate representation and inclusion from all parts of society, all different kinds of people. It makes you a better kind of program and a better institution because you have multiple voices. And B, I think it's something that we are all really, really focusing on because if we have a mixed kind of, a very diverse population, we do better work. And I think that's been proven time and again. So I think that is something that's being looked at from a trainee perspective, and it's really important to all of us.
Okay, wow. Okay. Are you seeing a situation like, when you said AI is coming in and, how much of like man with machine versus and or man versus machine, like where are you seeing this ratio of man and machine in hospitals and in diagnostics?
So again, a lot of this is at the research level or pilot studies. So it's not, it might be implemented, but in a small way. It's not that we have it right now in our daily practice, but that's the hope. So I think at this point that we don't have that answer yet, but that is another thing, you bring up a good point that's going to have to be regulated and kind of standardized across things so that it is that we have enough oversight, especially in the beginning.
Okay. But at least as of now, you're not seeing any signs of it, right? That right now, there's not that much co-botting in that sense happening.
You know what, I think there are concerns about this, that at which point will it be too much and at which point will we have to step back. But there are centers that actually look at kind of using AI in a safe way and protecting the people who will be affected by it most. So I feel like that oversight is already kind of being thought about.
It is being thought about. Okay. Okay, awesome. And when you think about the workspace in general, when you think about your workspace, and then that would be a hospital. How have you seen the space evolve, and how do you think it's going to evolve in the next 5, 10, 15 years? Like hypothetically, we all had COVID, and like we saw workspaces moving to flexible workspace, etc. In the field of medicine, how do you think it's going to evolve? Because different
Yeah.
sectors have different sort of hypotheses on this.
Absolutely. So I think, in the pandemic, we learned lessons that medicine was obviously affected probably the most of all fields. And I think that we learned about our own strength. I don't think things that we had never thought possible happened in a matter of days and weeks. We were able to rally, we were able to, get people together and come up with creative solutions. So I think that we have that forever now. Those lessons that we learned. I think now what is happening in terms of evolution in medicine is medicine will always continue to evolve. So there's a certain part of the science that is kind of written in stone. And then there's a certain part of the science that really does need research. We need to study it more. We need to have more diverse trials, so that we can really understand, are we doing the right thing? Because medicine changes. There are newer drugs, newer treatments. But every time something new comes along, it has to be validated. It has to be studied in randomized controlled trials to know that it's the right thing to do. So that work is basically what's been taking us forward before, and I think will continue to take us forward now, potentially with the addition of technologies and AI and things like that. That is being studied as well. But I think that will always be the future of medicine. Medicine seeks to evolve, and it will continue to do so.
Okay, fine. So great. So medicine will obviously be a contributor as well as beneficiary to sort of the future landscape. What about physical workspaces? How do you sort of physically see the institution of a hospital evolving? Do you think it's going to remain as it is? There will be a building and patients will come in and out. Do you see more and more doctors operating remotely? You sitting in California working with villagers in India, and technology making this possible, or do you think it's a bit of a farce? Like, how are you seeing the space evolve 10 or 15 years later?
Yeah, so I think again, COVID taught us a lot about that, about what our capabilities are. So I think certainly, remote consultation, again, you have to be a little bit careful because there, it especially depends where you live. There are licensing laws and it all has to be very, kind of, you have to have a protocol for this for the reason of patient privacy and security and other things like that, especially when you're using, the internet and those type of things. But I think, we really have the ability to reach patients where we couldn't before. So I think that's huge. Certainly in terms of, technology, surgeries happen with robotic assistance. That's quite standard now. Those things will continue to evolve. There'll be better technologies, better treatments. And I think that's always been the future of medicine. But we've seen that over the last several decades anyway. And I think that will continue. Things get more sophisticated, but as they get more sophisticated, you also have to make sure you do your due diligence and make sure it's the right thing that we're doing.
Okay, terrific. Okay, and is this field evolves in terms of skilling, right? If you had, if you were going to take in a fresh crop of doctors, what sort of skills would you want to enable them with, or what sort of skills would you say, look, you better enable yourself with these skills because here's, the future's evolving. And also, if you had somebody much younger, right, someone just entering medical schools, what kind of skill set would you suggest that they come endowed with?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think some of these skills are timeless. So, resilience, flexibility, the ability to learn from your environment and use whatever resources are at your disposal. So I think one thing that's really important as an educator is, the future may be evolving, there may be brand new things, but if you teach students the skills that can take them through any new evolution, then you've taught them for life. And so some of those are not very specific to AI or specific to technology, they're just specific to life. And I think in medicine, medicine anyway it's not easy to go through residency and fellowship. Those are challenging parts of people's career, and you're faced with a lot of uncertainty, a lot of newness in your life, and a lot of skills that you have to do, sleep deprivation, it's a whole thing. So I feel like at that point, empowering trainees with the skills that they need to get through those levels. And then what I've seen with all our trainees is everybody picks their own kind of what they want to do and their interests, and then we have to have the resources to support them. You want to do digital health, okay, we'll help you. You want to do interventional cardiology, we'll help you. So and that process continues to evolve until someone finally picks their final career pathway. So I think that, but teaching them the basic skills of how to be a good doctor, a good researcher, a good teacher, that will never become old, and that I think will continue. We may have more sophisticated techniques, but the basis of that will always be the foundation.
Okay. So you're saying as far as doctors are concerned, I think we've got it right pretty much in the past, and you feel like those foundational building blocks will continue. Do you see a need to suddenly introduce technical curriculum in medical schools? Do you see the need for some coding, programming, or just overall technical adoption? Or do you think that's something that doctors can pick up when required as you progress and go forward?
No, absolutely. I do think the curriculum needs to evolve, and not just for, technical and programming, those kind of things, but also things like what we're doing in the medical school is, you introduce things like climate change, you introduce LGBTQ health, in things that are really, really important, that may not have been covered in a standardized way. So then it's a little bit, if someone's teaching it, great. If they're not, but I think having our curriculum evolve to include all of those things is critical, and that work is again being done on probably on an institutional level, but also on a more national level. So I feel like that is something that is really going to evolve. And then I think on top of that, what we as educators need to understand is what is the sweet spot, like how much do we teach of everything so that everyone has enough of a background, and then if you have a particular interest, then you can focus on something more,
Okay.
and having those resources available.
Can we go a little deeper on the climate change aspect? Like what aspects and why and how, just let's stay on that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think, for us in the medical school, one simple way that we found to incorporate it is when we have cases that, the students are learning about these are cases that like vignettes and things like that, where we talk about, we introduce either a background of kind of something to do with climate change and respiratory illness or some other thing that climate change can affect. And then it's not like you're learning everything about climate change in that one class, but it's opening your mind at a young stage, at an early stage, that these are things we need to think about. And it's all about opening the doors and kind of introducing the knowledge so that people can either focus on it more, or we can have a more in-depth curriculum as we go forward.
Okay, you're talking about diseases that might result as an effect of climate changing.
That's one way that we do it, but there are many different ways to do it, but that's one way in medicine that we can include it in our curriculum.
Ah, okay, I see. Okay. And you talked about the LGBTQ and the diversity angle. What is that angle?
I mean, I think it's really, really important for anyone who's going through medical training now to be aware of like the unique challenges that affect the LGBTQ plus community, because they are different and there are certain, health issues, certain things we need to be aware of with their medications and things like that. So if that's not included in the curriculum and you become a physician, you're not going to know how to take care of these patients most effectively. So that's, these are all the things that we make sure that we are trying to include from an early stage.
Can you share an example of something so that it becomes clearer? Like how is it different?
Yeah, so it's certain, there's sometimes they're on certain hormonal medications like testosterone, estrogen, not the things that we prescribe regularly in our other patients. And so we need to know the side effects. We need to know in cardiology. We need to know if there's any underlying cardiac issue. Are these medications safe? So it's that. So we need to have at least a broad understanding of the health issues and the medications.
Ah, okay, okay, great. Okay, wow. I didn't think of it from that lens. Okay, thank you for sharing that. Okay, great. I think we've touched upon factors, we've touched upon skills, and you briefly touched upon this, but if we could go a little bit deeper on the legalities and policy makers, right? So if you're in a legal institution, so you've touched upon education. You think about the pillars of society. It's the educators, it's the people who are forming law, and then the policy makers. So can we go a little bit deeper into the legal and political issues, and we can take them one at a time, in terms of ensuring that the future of medicine is positive, optimistic, and it does what you said. The objective is to take care of people and take care of many, many more people, very simplistically put. So what sort of legal frameworks are missing, or what sort of legal frameworks do you see coming through, or are required?
Yeah, so I think that again, that is the purview of people who are in health policy. And there's a lot of work being done. These are, people who either study public health or who go into health policy. There are, through the society. So at least in cardiology, our big societies, the scientific societies, they actually have legislative conferences. So they actually go to Washington and they talk to policymakers, and they reflect the kind of, what we are concerned about, laws that are coming up, things that will affect, things that will affect kind of healthcare reimbursement, healthcare, including diversity and having kind of equitable healthcare. That's a very, very big thing that people are concerned about. So I think these are the things, as physicians, we have a different, we look at it in a certain way, and obviously, it's we need to convey that to the people who make the laws and who make policy. So those kind of things, there's a lot of specialized knowledge and a lot of kind of a lot of action that's happening there.
Okay, so you're talking about from an equity standpoint, just more access, equal access to healthcare as one of
That's
the.
yeah. There's a lot of different things. Again, I don't pretend to have all the knowledge of this. It's not
Sure.
something that I work in, but we definitely do have a lot of the societies who work in these, who have legislative action.
Okay, great. Okay, as we sort of taper, towards the end of this conversation, last couple of questions. Um, let's talk a little bit about bloom versus gloom. Are you generally optimistic about the future? Is there a rosy scenario in your head where you're like, look, if we get it right, then like 5 billion people can now be helped and serviced through technology, AI, etc. So that so what is your sort of gloom and boom scenario? How could humans mix this up, and how could humans really take this to a new frontier?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we talked a lot about AI, but we have to remember AI is a small part of medicine, and whatever's coming in the future, there are principles, and this is medicine. Has evolved over centuries, and there are certain principles that have stood the test of time and will continue to. So I think it's always going to be a balance. But yes, no, I mean, I think as physicians, certainly there are things in medicine that need to be improved. There's no question. I think we all agree about that. But I would say, the heart of it, which is again patient care, making sure our patients are getting the right treatments, making sure we're all doing our best for our patients, those sentiments, and being good, thoughtful researchers, being good educators, that is a timeless sentiment. And it may evolve with the help of all these technologies, but it really has been something that those are the principles we're kind of raised with and trained with. So knowing that that is the backbone of our profession, I think everything else that comes will help it evolve, hopefully in the right direction. But we have a very solid foundation that we're starting with. So I'm optimistic, yes.
You are optimistic. Okay, but is there a gloom scenario where you feel like where can things go wrong with this
Always.
level of
in
technology and access? Like what?
in any field, I think that's where it's really important for people who have the knowledge, have the understanding, and having a lot of transparency, and having these kind of technologies go through big trials to really show that they're effective and safe. I think that's where we have become good about trying to do those things. And I think, before things become standard of care, they really need to be proven. And so that, I think, will help us understand.
Okay, so you're saying sufficient trial, sufficient time, sufficient accuracy to prevent then a gloom scenario. So
Yeah.
lots of work by
Lots
government.
of work, But in medicine in general, for anything, right, whether it's technology or a new medication or a new treatment, we have very rigorous, checks and balances that go before we're debuting this on patients. So I think we have that infrastructure. It's just a little bit different when you talk about AI and things like that. So you need expertise and you need people who know what they're doing to help.
Okay, okay, great, terrific. Okay, Risheen, this was very, very helpful. Thank you so much. Lots of great insights, and very curious to see how the future unravels in your space. But I think with people like you in the space, Risheen, I have no doubt that the space is going to flourish, and so are the people under your care. So thank you, Risheen, for all your insights. This was extremely knowledgeable. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was so lovely to talk to you, Vibha. Thank you for inviting me.